About 5 hours ago, I was playing a game on my PC when suddenly my phone went off. As I went to go check who called me, I saw my own number on the screen. As I went to pick up the phone, I heard the voice of a little girl talking to me. I was shook, but just kept talking with the girl. At one point, she started saying that she was very cold and she wanted me to come give her a blanket. I honestly was a little creeped out, so I politely said I can't do that. And as I said that, she said, "But I'm sitting right behind you." My heart dropped and I became very scared. I asked her to repeat what she just said, and she said it again. So to test her, I asked which color my sheets were, and she said red. I asked what color my blanket was, and she said blue, which both were correct. I became terrified. I said I had to go, and I hung up the phone. I recorded the phone call and later showed it to my mother. When I let her hear the video, she immediately started crying because my mom recognized who I was talking to. It was no stranger. It was my oldest sister that passed away when she was 6, way before I was born. I'm still very terrified and very upset about it. This is the first time I have ever witnessed this with my own eyes. I'm an RN in a surgical ICU unit. I work midnights in a large hospital in a major city. The other night, I was working and the phone rang at the nurse's station. It was around 12:30 a.m. and the caller ID said unavailable, which I have never seen before. I answered the phone and all I heard for a few seconds was a faint, staticky noise. Then, a voice in a loud whisper quickly said, "Hello? I'm looking for my mother." I was a little surprised and didn't know how to respond for a few seconds, and the voice repeated itself after I didn't respond. This time, sounding a little more distressed. I finally said, "Who's your mother? And do you know what room she's in, or supposed to be in?" The voice responded with a name and said, "I think she's in room 37 or something like that." At this point, I was getting really creeped out because they were still whispering and I couldn't even tell if this was a man or a woman, and they were beginning to sound more and more panicked as the call went on. It almost sounded like they were hiding from someone and trying not to be heard talking on the phone. And there was also still a faint static noise in the background. I responded, "Are you okay? I'm having trouble hearing you clearly. Why are you whispering?" And the voice responded, "I need your help. I'm looking for my mother. Are you able to help me?" I'm looking, and then the line cut off, and I just heard a dial tone. I had chills up and down my spine, and my coworker who was sitting next to me during this was just staring at me with her eyes open, and she said I looked terrified. So anyway, I looked through our unit list, and there was no person listed with the name the caller gave me. I searched the entire hospital census, and there was no patient admitted under that name. So I went and found the charge nurse and asked her if she remembered any patients recently admitted with that name and told her the story. She didn't, and we looked through the last few weeks of our records for patients who had passed away in our unit, but nothing matched. She told me she thinks someone was just messing with me, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for the past couple of days. Logically, I know this was most likely a prank call or something, but it seems so weird. Why would someone call an ICU at 12:30 a.m. just to mess with a nurse? Also, the specific phone number to the nurse's station is not listed online. You have to call the hospital operator and ask to be connected to the nurse's station, or an employee has to give you the direct number to call. For example, if you were a family member calling to get updates or something similar. Also, the room number the caller gave us also lines up with the numbers on the unit. So that could have been a lucky guess, but it just seems odd to me. I answer a lot of phone calls from people looking for their family members when they're admitted to the hospital, and I'm used to talking to people while they're in a state of panic or extreme emotion. I feel like that's hard to fake, but I sensed genuine distress from that caller I spoke to and personally felt it for a while after it had happened. It was one of those things that instantly made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and I was jumpy for the rest of the shift, and I didn't answer any more phone calls. So it was around 12 to 1 p.m., and during that time I got around 2 scam calls. Obviously, I declined them both, but then when it got to the third one, I had to answer it. I answered, ready to crash out on who kept calling me, but as soon as I said hello, I started hearing women's cries. I responded, "Are you okay?" Keep in mind, I did not know the person, but I also couldn't help but notice how it sounded like someone I knew, but I couldn't pinpoint it since they sobbed and sobbed, before they finally responded with, "Can you pick me up?" over and over. And by now, I'm just wondering if they knew they were calling the wrong number. And I responded, "Who are you?" before they responded quite quickly, "You know who I am. Please pick me up." I was worried. If I'm being honest, the number looked oddly like it could have been from a school, but I doubt it. And then I said, "I think you have the wrong number." And they said, "No, please pick me up." I was about to decline, but I was already uncomfortable and had a gut feeling that maybe this person is in trouble, or what if they're missing? And that was pretty stupid to think, but who wouldn't have thought that with a woman crying, saying these types of things? And then I responded again, "Are you okay?" before they cried for a couple of minutes without saying anything, and after that, they declined. I turned off my phone, and being flat out just uncomfortable with all the hairs on my body standing up, and getting up to see if my door was locked definitely didn't help, as I thought what might have gotten that woman to frantically call someone, yet accidentally calling me. They unfortunately didn't call me back, so I couldn't tell if they were okay, but since that call, everything has been silent. So a brief background. I work for a company that answers phone calls and takes messages for businesses when they're closed, out to lunch, after hours, etc. We answer for a variety of companies in different fields, including funeral homes. This situation has happened twice, and I've talked to the person myself on the phone, and a few other times as well, and I think it's very interesting and thought maybe it would warrant a discussion here. So the first time this happened, I took the message from this lady whose mother had recently passed. Body had already been picked up and dressed and was at the funeral parlor. Visitation was scheduled for the following day. She calls and is weepy and asks if her mother's phone is still in her jacket pocket because they just caught a call from her number. I end up dispatching the call, calling the director to deliver the message verbally, and he says the whole caller, but the body is in the casket and the casket is closed, waiting in the parlor. I say, "Wow, that's weird." And he kind of chuckles and he says, "This kind of thing happens more often than you would think." It's been a year or more since that call, and just yesterday I got another call similar for another funeral home, and other people I work for have had the same type of stories happen to them. About 4 years ago, I was home alone while my family was out at my sister's parent-teacher conference. I was a middle schooler at the time, so I felt very comfortable being left home alone. Around 7 p.m., we got a call to our landline. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it ring until it went to voicemail. My parents had told me never to pick up unknown numbers, and if anyone has something you need to hear, they'll leave a message. To my surprise, the machine says that they left a message. Out of curiosity, I play it. The voice was one of those generic robocall voices. I can best describe as a calm, white, Midwestern middle-aged man. Interestingly enough, the voice did have some inflection, which led me to believe that it could have just been poorly acted, but it just seemed so monotone otherwise that I couldn't imagine it coming from anyone but a speech synthesis application or maybe a voice actor. It's been a while, but the message etched itself into my memory. It went something like this. "Hi, this is John. Your mom told me that you found my dog. I'm so relieved to hear he's okay." At that point, I skipped the message. It didn't sit well with me, and the fact that I was home alone at this time made me feel a bit uneasy too. At that age, the mind tends to wonder. I told my mom about it, and she confirmed that she never found a dog. I asked some of my friends if they'd heard a similar issue before, but they didn't know anything about it. My dad gave the most likely, but also the most disturbing theory. For those unaware, your name and phone number are available online, similar to Yellow Pages. More alarmingly, there are plenty of sites online that will tell any interested viewer your name, phone number, address, age, and relatives, including children. Any old chump can figure out that Joe Smith has 3 kids who lives at 123 Street Lane, Anytown, USA, and of course, the number for Joe's landline. My dad threw out the theory that some of these creeps are using these directories to figure out who has kids and what ages they are. For my sister and I, 11 and 15 respectively, these creeps send out robocalls to those numbers, asking kids to let them know when their parents will be home, or just to ask the kid to step out and talk to them, things of that nature. I wish that I'd held on to that recording, at least so that I could have heard the rest of what the voice said. Anyways, I want to know if anyone has heard this message before, or something similar. This just happened to my husband's coworker just over a week ago, and he's still freaked out. We'll call the coworker Mike. Mike is a single guy who likes to play guitar at home in his spare time. Recently, Mike was casually practicing guitar in his living room, and his cell phone rings. He notices it's from an unknown number. He answers his phone and says, "Hello?" All of a sudden, a recording of Mike just having played guitar 5 minutes ago plays on the other end of the line. He was and is still freaked out. He called the police and the phone company. He was seriously freaked out. He went and bought a new SIM card, but that's basically all he could do. My husband thought it was maybe Alexa that was hacked, but I disagree. Because how would it get his number?